What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. We are in the middle of the V8 swap video series, installing a 6.4 liter Hemi with an 8-speed transmission into my Jeep Wrangler JK. Let's get this video started. So in my last video, we got the engine and transmission mounted in the Jeep, and we also did quite a few modifications, not only to the Jeep side, we also did a bunch of modifications to the Hemi side. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and say this again, guys. Everything I'm doing in this video series is the same for a 5.7 liter Hemi as well. We're gonna talk about the years of the engine, which I've already kind of talked about in the first video, but people are still asking me questions. So we're gonna go over a lot in this video. We have a lot to do today. So we got the engine and transmission in, we got a few modifications done, but that does not mean we are done yet. That's kind of the easy part. It was honestly pretty easy getting that in there. We have a bunch of stuff here on the table, still have more stuff coming, but a lot of this is for the 8-speed transmission. We're gonna come back to that in a minute. In my last video, I'd mentioned as for the wiring harness, I'm using the Jeep Speed Shop wiring harness and ECM for this swap. It makes it extremely easy, and I was gonna go over the wiring harness, how to install it, but guys, it's literally plug and play. We start over here with our ECM connectors, route it through, and then just start plugging stuff up. It is plug and play. It goes to our coil packs, our injectors, all of the sensors on our engine, our AC compressor, guys, it's plug and play. But there is one wire that kind of confused me. This connector right here, it's over here on the passenger side. This is actually for our intake air temp sensor. This kit is designed for a 6.4 or a 5.7. The 5.7 has the intake on that side. So that's why it's right here. I was like, man, where's that going? We're gonna make an extension and run it over here. We're good to go. Now there are quite a few other wires, especially on the back side of the engine towards the transmission. With the 8-speed swap, we're not gonna use a lot of those. So if there's, man, where's this go? You're probably not gonna use it. Very easy kit to install. I didn't wanna include that because we have so many other harder parts of this swap to talk about. So let's get this video started. Let's go over what we have on the table. We're gonna start off with the Jeep Speed Shop 8-speed kit. So with that kit, we get a floor plate for our new shifter, we get our complete transmission wiring harness, and we get the transmission computer, the TCM. It's like a standalone computer for the 8-speed. So that's what we get out of that kit. Now, what else do we have? We have a Jeep Speed Shop ECM for this swap. We have a transmission mount plate that's gonna work with the 8-speed in our Jeep. We have our new shifter out of a Dodge Challenger for our 8-speed transmission. We have a few plugs over here to kind of go along with the wiring harness, very simple. We have AN line and an AN fitting to make our own fuel line. We have a Barnes 4-wheel drive battery tray, little sensor right here, and then mounts for our transmission and transfer case. So all of this we're gonna go over in this video, plus I do have some more parts coming. We have a lot of stuff to do in this video. Now, before we go any further, I know a lot of people are gonna be asking, hey, what parts do I need from certain vehicles? Here we go, wrote it down for you. Years, 8-speed, 13 to 17 Dodge Ram 4-wheel drive with a 5.7 HP 870. You can get them used on eBay like I did. The shifter, we're gonna get a 15 to 18 Challenger any engine shifter. If you wanna go with the 5.7 truck engine, get it from 09 to 20 Ram 1500. If you wanna get the 5.7 out of a car, once again, make sure it's VVT 09 to 20. You can get it out of a Charger, Challenger, a 300, or a Grand Cherokee. Now, if you wanna go with the big 6.4 Hemi like me, it's gonna have to be out of a car, the LX style. That is gonna be from 09 to 20 Charger, Challengers, 300s, and Grand Cherokees as well. Our transfer case, if you're doing the 8-speed swap, it's gonna have to be an 07 to 11 auto or an 07 to 19 manual. And I haven't talked about it yet, but we're gonna be running the Camaro fan from 16 to 21 Camaro or CTSV or the ATS. Now, hopefully that helps some of you guys out. I normally put all of this amplifying information into the video description. I type it all up, but I still get asked these questions. So hey, it's in a video, but normally if you're looking for something that I kind of talked about but didn't really go into, check the video description. I put a lot of stuff there. With all that being said, I know there was a lot of stuff to talk about, plus I still have more to talk about. We trimmed our 6.4 Hemi covers right along this edge to clear the back wiring harness, and on the front here to clear our power steering reservoir. So now that we've went over all of that info and you're probably getting bored by now, it's time to work on the Hemi. So the first things we're gonna do in today's video is reattach our intake manifold. I took it off to get installed. We are gonna tighten everything down, run our new brake booster hose over to our brake booster, and we are going to make a fuel line mod. So first, let's get this intake manifold bolted down. The 6.4 Hemi intake manifold has a certain sequence order in which to torque down each bolt to 9 foot-pounds. We hook up our vacuum line on the back of the intake and route it over to our Jeep brake booster. You can either modify your current one, or if your Hemi came with one, you can modify that as well. With the intake mounted down and our vacuum line ran, I can now go ahead and plug in all of our injector harnesses, as well as our 2 plugs that are in the back of the intake. With that done, we can now take a look at how to build our own fuel lines. If you buy a kit, for example, the Jeep Speed Shop, the full kit for this install, it comes with it. You don't need to build anything. But for those of you who want to kind of piece it together like me, we can build our own fuel line. So on the factory 3.8 and the 3.6, we have female ends on both sides of our fuel line. Now, when you're removing your engine, you should have remembered pulling your fuel line. It's located underneath the Jeep right in front of our transmission cross member on the passenger side. Now, we cannot reuse our Jeep line just because our new fuel line over here on the Hemi is gonna be 3/8, whereas the old Jeep one was 5/16, a little bit smaller. So we're gonna have to build a new fuel line to have a 3/8 fitting fit on there. Now that's where AN fittings and AN lines come into play. It's very easy to build your own like fuel system or anything that's gonna like have oil or pressure. It's really easy to build. As you can tell, I went ahead and picked up an angled 6 AN 3/8 quick disconnect with an elbow. I'll try to put a link in the video description. On Amazon, there's only a few of these and the only color is blue. So, I don't know, looks pretty cool though. Now, for the bottom side, we have a straight one, fuel quick disconnect, part number right there. Already made that one. I'm gonna show you guys how to make this one. First step is to measure how long we need to make our fuel line. To measure the fuel line is pretty simple. We route it from our fuel rail down to our fuel line underneath the Jeep. We're gonna run the fuel line down the transmission tunnel and we're gonna attach it to this straight fitting. This angled one right here, that's gonna be for our evap. We're leaving that for now. As you can tell, I went ahead and test fitted the quick disconnect. It's on there. So we're gonna leave a little bit of slack and it looks like right about here is gonna be a good length. We're gonna go ahead and put a piece of tape right on where we're gonna cut it. It's important to make a nice clean cut. Now there's already a ton of videos online on how to do AN fittings and what they are, but real quick, it's a way to put a threaded end on a hose rated for fuel or oil. So what we're gonna do is put this piece inside the hose, and this is gonna go on the hose and tighten it. The hose is gonna expand on here, and it creates a fitting that can hold a ton of pressure. It's really awesome. So if you do plan on doing this, not only will you have to buy the hose, you'll have to buy a bunch of AN fittings, and then you'll have to buy the quick disconnects. All of that will be in the video description, or you can buy the hose and fitting kits and then buy the disconnects. Building and installing these AN lines are really easy. Not only is it gonna help us with fuel, but you can also do a soft transmission cooling line setup as well. First, I like to put a little WD-40 on the outside of the hose. We're gonna slide our base fitting all the way on until it bottoms out. You can peek inside to make sure it's bottomed out. We're gonna grab a silver Sharpie and mark the line where it meets the base. This way we know it's not moving when we're tightening this down. Next, we're gonna put a little grease on the threads of the fitting, as well as on the base where it starts to cone. Now, we are just gonna thread this together. And just like that, our fuel line is now made. For this side, all we have to do is thread on our quick disconnect that's already down there at the bottom. So between this video so far and my last video, hopefully you can see that doing a Hemi swap, there's nothing really major involved. There's just a lot of little things that are easily tackled at home. So we've got our fuel line made, we've got all that done. Now it's time to talk about some of the wiring that we're gonna have to do for our Jeep computer. Luckily, it's extremely easy. So our computer is gonna mount right back in the factory spot. We're gonna plug all of this up. There's only 2 wires, just 2 that we have to do. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute after we get the computer mounted. I mean, here it is. We're pretty much just gonna put these into this white plug on our Jeep. Super simple. Now there's one more thing I forgot to mention in regards to the wiring harness. This guy right here is what's gonna plug into our throttle body. Depending on if you have a 5.7 or a 6.4, Jeep Speed Shop sends us both adapters. Plug in the correct one so we can plug in our throttle body. So we're gonna get that done and let's start working on some of the ECM wiring. The new Jeep Speed Shop ECM is in there, and it has my name on there. Very, very fancy. I also did a few things in that clip. I added our crankcase ventilation hose. This is going from the valve cover and eventually to our intake, just like kind of the stock setups are. I also went ahead and installed the valve cover covers because they look freaking sweet, 6.4 Hemi. And I also wanted to make sure everything fit with my fuel line. So the reason I do that angled fuel line fitting is because if it just went straight out, I'd have to drill a hole there and that wouldn't look good. So with the angle, it runs out back, I zip tied it up there wire harness, and it runs down the Jeep. We definitely want to make sure that we secure our fuel line good. We don't want it to get cut or run along our exhaust manifolds that are really, really hot. Let's take a look at what we have to do with this connector. So I mentioned there are two wires we have to install in here for the wiring harness. We have our C38 and C333, and those are going to get installed in those respective locations on our C3 plug. To get to that is the hard part. That's easy. We have to undo 4 locking tabs on this connector to open it up. As you can tell, I already broke one off. I tried to manhandle it with a screwdriver, doesn't work. You have to do all 4 at the same time and slide the back off. Luckily, I have these little electrical depinners. I got them on Amazon a long time ago. I'll throw a link to those in the video description. They're a lot smaller, and anytime you're trying to disassemble stuff like this, it really does help. So we're gonna slide 4 pieces in, I guess 3 now, at the same time and try to take that cover off. Well, 2 down. Let's hope the bottom 2 don't break. And I broke all but 1. So, all right, so I broke all of them except for 1. So it looks like once we reinstall this, we'll just do a little dab of super glue. We're gonna go over to this red tab, pop that out. Then we're gonna open up the back side of this connector. There's 2 spots up top here and on the back here to put a screwdriver in and lightly pry it up so it pops out. Now, once we have one side popped out, we're gonna insert another screwdriver to hold that. This is definitely more than a 2-hand job. Go over to the other side, do the same thing. You won't be able to see it on camera, but on the back side of this connector, there's numbers. The top left starts with 1 and the right is number 10. So the first one we're gonna do is C38, which can be 10, 9, 8. There's little black tabs in here we're gonna have to break off. Then we just slide it in. You should hear a distinct pop, and then make sure it's in place. Give it a little tug. If it pulls out, flip it around. If not, you're good to go. Then move over to our next one. That is literally the only wiring we have to do for the engine and ECM. As you can tell, insanely easy, super straightforward. That's one of the benefits of Hemi swaps is, you know, staying with a Mopar part, such as the engine, is a lot more compatible than throwing like a Ford engine or a Chevy LS into the Jeep. That's why people like these Hemi swaps. It's very easy, and it helps out a bunch when we're doing it here at home. So there is a few other things I want to talk about as for the other parts of the wiring. Now, Jeep Speed Shop does have quite a few videos on YouTube. He has a YouTube channel, and you know, they're all pretty short. None of them are really far in depth. That's why I'm making these videos, to help you guys who have, you know, certain questions. In regards to his videos, there's a lot of different stuff. So like the his wiring harness grounds, where do you ground it to? Right here, the one that's up at the plugs. We also have our ECM ground that goes there. The engine wiring harness ground goes to this side of the block. The Jeep harness ground goes to the starter lug over here. All of that stuff he kind of talks about in his videos. So if you do go with his kit and you are looking for maybe a little more breakdown, go to his channel, and he has quite a few YouTube videos up there. With that being done, we are done with all that. Next up, it's time to take a look at how we're gonna mount our 8-speed transmission into the Jeep. It's actually pretty simple. So what we have here is a Jeep Speed Shop transmission plate. It is plate B for $40. Comes raw steel, you have to paint it, and it works perfectly with their bolt-in engine mounts and their weld-in ones. But these top holes are not normally there. Since I'm not running his bolt-in motor mounts, I actually don't know whose those are. It came with the engine. I think they're Dakota Customs. The engine mounts a little bit differently, so I had to drill new holes 1 inch up on their plate. If you're running their mounts, it's gonna be completely bolt in. So we have this plate here. We have to also get the transmission mount, as you can see the part numbers right there, for a Dodge Ram. This is gonna bolt onto the transmission. Here's the part number, and we are gonna have to modify it a little bit. Just like we cut the transmission, that bottom lip, we're gonna have to do this same thing on the mount. We're also gonna have to make a cut right here so we can reuse our factory Jeep mount. It's gonna tab in just like that, but this little lip hits that corner and doesn't let it settle. So we're gonna cut this and this. All right, Magical Robot, clean up all the metal shavings. Once again, you only have to do the modification to the transmission and this plate if you're running the Rubicon transfer case. So we're gonna go ahead and get this mocked up so we can slop it in on the Jeep. So we're gonna put it just like that. Now, one thing I'm not sure about, this is for the 3.8 with the manual. That's what I had before, and it lines up with this plate. I know that some of the automatics or 2012 and up have a different bolt pattern, so you might have to switch to this mount. I'm not too sure. Grab the bolts, get this on. And these bolts that I'm using are from my old transmission. I forgot that you want to drop a bolt down through the top of the plate, because underneath here, since the plate goes back, the transmission's in the way to run a bolt up. So we need to drop 4 bolts through so they can go into our cross member and we can tighten them down. As you can tell, there's more overhang on it. It'd be a good idea to go ahead and run a beefier cross member. I'm running the Barnes 4-wheel drive one that has the incorporated links. I'd highly recommend it. Even if you don't have long arms, you can still bolt it up, and then in the future, if you do run long arms, you already have the correct cross member. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these off, drop this plate down, and put 4 bolts in from the top. All we have to do is kind of move over our transmission a little bit, line it up so it drops down through the cross member. They all dropped in, so now we're gonna tighten them down. This is just my luck. Sadly, I think we're gonna have to cut progress on the Hemi for now. I have no power here in my house. Most of you guys know that Texas has got snow, just a little bit, and the temperature's dropping, and the state's freaking out. So they had to cut power to certain spots of Texas in order to send power to the other places, just because the grid can't handle the increased load of 30-degree temperatures. So I have no power here, which means no forward progress on the Hemi. So it's a good point to kind of break up the video too, because it's already kind of long and we have a lot of stuff to go over when it comes to the transmission wiring. There's a lot we're gonna do there. So in the next video, we're gonna tackle the transmission wiring harness. We are going to mount the shifter, hopefully get our radiator in, our electric fan, and that's almost it. The Hemi swap is coming to a close. So yesterday I should have continued progress and this video probably would have been done. However, my buddy Harrison came over. He blew his rear axle U-joint. He has a lifted TJ with the transfer case drop. So, after he blew that, I said, hey, let's go ahead and put in a slip yoke eliminator and a new rear drive shaft. So if you want to stick around and watch some of that wrenching, the rest of the video will be kind of fast motion of us putting on a slip yoke eliminator kit on his TJ. But thank you guys for watching. Please give the video a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys next week where hopefully the Hemi swap will be pretty much done, as long as Texas figures out what the heck to do and turns power back onto my house. See you guys later.